The advantage of the select statement is that its result in one query can be used in the other. Such queries are called subqueries. When using subqueries in the from section, one query serves as a data source for the other. Just like a table, a subquery can be filtered and joined with other tables or subqueries. Let's look at the example. Let's take the 3 longest films and list the actors who played there. First, let's start with writing a query that will display the 3 longest movies. Let's take a films table and sort the rows in descending order by the length of the movie, and take the first 3 rows, which are the 3 longest films. Now let's find the actors who played in these films. First, let's wrap this query in a subquery and give it the alias for the maximum movie length, and make one more select for this query. We're interested in actors, so we will join this query to the link table Films Actors by Film ID, and then join to the Actors table by the Actors identifier. We want our query result to include the movie title from our subquery. Let's alias this column Movie Title, and also the names and surnames of the actors in one column separated by a space, as we already know how with an alias Full Actor Name. As a result, we got 3 longest films and a list of the actors who played there. Subqueries can also be used to filter the data in the main query. If the subquery returns one row, comparison operators are used for filtering: equal, greater than, less than, etc. If there are more than one row in the subquery, the operators in, not in, and etc. can be used. Let's take a closer look at the in and exists operators. The in operator checks that the specified expression matches at least one value in the subquery result. It is similar to looking up the last name in the telephone directory. For example, first all rows with identifiers, where the name satisfies the condition, are selected from table B, and then using these identifiers, rows from table A are retrieved. The exists operator works differently. It checks that the specified subquery returned at least one row, meaning if the subquery result is not empty, then exists always returns true. Let's have an example using these 2 operators. Let's list all the movies in which Burt Temple played. To begin with, let's select the identifiers of these films from the Film Actor link table and filter our query by the Burt Temple identifier. How can we do that? It is very simple. Let's write a subquery right after the equal sign and display the actor's identifier from the actors table with a condition that his name, let's write in the uppercase to avoid mistakes, is his first name Burt and his last name Temple. We see that there are 23 movies where Temple played. If we need the film names, we can write a query on the films table. Here, we use the in sign, not equal, since we have more than one film. There was only one actor, but there are many films. Let's choose a movie title and release year. Thus we got all the 23 film names where Burt Temple played. Note that using the in operator is not always efficient, since the database will first process the entire subquery result, and only then the query itself, matching the queries. Unlike the in operator, exists works row by row and often provides with faster query execution. Let's see how to use this operator in our example. To do this, change the in keyword to exists, and remove the film ID column name from the where clause, since the exists operator does not need an argument on the left side, but will check for the existence of rows in the subquery results. If you execute the query now, it will display absolutely all films, and not just the films of Burt Temple. This is due to the fact that for each row of the main query, the exists operator will return at least one row, meaning that movies are not filtered at all. How do you add filtering? The subquery needs to take into account the row values from the main query. To do this, add condition for the table from the main query in the where section of subquery. In the main query, the films table has an alias f, which we can use in the subquery. We can say that we're joining the main query with the subquery. What does it give us? We scan the films table from the main query and iterate over each row. We send this row to the subquery. The subquery selects all Burt Temple movies and then checks that the movie ID where Burt Temple was playing matches the movie ID from the main query. The result of the subquery will be different for each row from the main selection. If Burt Temple played in a movie, then the subquery will return a row with this movie, and therefore the exists operator will return true, and the row will go to the final result. If Burt Temple did not play in the movie, then when joining by film ID from the main query, the row will be filtered and the subquery will not return anything. Thus, exists will return false and the row with this movie will not be included in the final result. Let's execute the query and see the same 23 rows, the same as for the in operator. To solve the opposite problem, to search for films in which Burt Temple did not play, it is enough to replace exists with not exists, or in with not in. However, there is a significant difference between the not in and not exists operators. It is the fact that in, like not in, performs element-wise comparison. For example, let's write a simple query and check if there is a 2 among the listed numbers. Let's execute the query. We see false, and this is true, since there are no 2 among the listed numbers. Let's now check not in. Let's execute the query. We get true, and this is true. Now let's add null to the set. And now a query with not in returned us null. Why did it happen? This is because when comparing 2 with 1, 3, 5, 8 element-wise, we get true, since 2 is not included in the listed values. But 2 compared to null is null. Null represents empty, missing, or undefined value, and the result of the comparison with this value is also always undefined, and it is equal to null. Therefore, the result of the entire comparison is also null. What is this going to lead to? If our subquery using not in film ID from the actor table has an empty value, then the result of the whole query will be an empty set. When comparing the film ID from the main query having null, we will always receive null. Not exists, unlike not in, checks the condition row by row, checking whether the exists expression returns at least one row. Therefore, in order not to face this issue with null, remember the following rule. If a null value is assumed in a subquery, use not exists instead of not in to get the expected result. Let's go back to our query, where we searched for films where Burt Temple played. As we can see, there are 2 levels of nesting in it. However, when solving very complex problems, there can be several subqueries. And nested subqueries can complicate the logic, and it also becomes more difficult to fix errors. Alternatively, you can move the logic to the main query using a join. And filter the already joined data. Also, to solve the problem of multiple subqueries and duplicate subqueries, the select command provides another option for describing subqueries using the common table expression engine. We will talk about them further.